Hey y'all, today it's Briar versus Oldhim, and let's get into it. So I wanted to try this Briar deck that I was just theory crafting that runs Belittle. So yep, this is one of the games I played with it into a more aggressive style Oldhim, as you can probably tell from the fact that my opponent's running Stalag instead of Rampart. So my opponent won the die roll, chose to go first. Is attacking me with 8 though, so like normally you don't want to attack your opponent because you let them filter, but if you attack them for 8, you and especially against Briar where I have a lot of 2 blocks, and you give them my whole hand to block this out, in which case it's not really filtering, I'm just drawing a fresh 4 from the top of my deck. Also, my opponent wanted to get rid of their bad cards, so there you go. Yeah, so I just give my opponent my whole hand, no point taking damage. The thing is with Oldhim, I found that typically the end game ends up with, both of you on very low life, and, just trying to get in the last kind of point of damage, and I don't want to be, like I don't take 2 points of unnecessary damage in turn 1, given that that's probably going to be an endgame. So we draw up, and we do find our Belittle. We were lacking a blue, though, but Sonata gets us there. So now there's 1 Arcane coming at our opponent. Okay, and they just take it. Cool. And now we can Belittle, revealing the red Vexing Malice, finding a red Minnowism. So now, when we play this Minnowism, we'll get an embodiment of lightning. So the Vexing Malice comes in afterwards with Go again, and we still have 1 floating for Rosetta. So that's the kind of play pattern I was trying to play towards when I built this deck with a Belittle. Of course, this time, it started off with a Sonata, but you really could see it happening with like a Bramble Spark at first, or, a Nimblism or something else. So there you go, 2 Arcane and 6 Physical with Go again. Opponent is just taking it all, and then they block with this Stalag to force me to use my last card to swing the Thorn. And I do use my last card. Well, since I know my opponent is just trying to keep their whole hand, I do use the last card from my hand. Because I feel like I can just get in that free damage. And my opponent takes it all. So that's the thing about the aggressive Oldhim, I'm fully expecting like something with a pommel behind it right now. Could be like a Spinal Crush with a pommel. CNC with a pommel is, a really good play that the aggressive Oldhims have. But since I don't have an Arsenal anymore, that's slightly less effective. Okay, my opponent comes in with a Disable, which is, similar to the CNC thing, where it's less effective since I don't have an Arsenal. I just say no blocks, fully expecting a pummel. Did not get pummeled, so I think my opponent's probably saving that pummel for a more relevant on hit. That's my read, at least. And now we go ahead, Channel Mount Heroic, Snatch for 7. This does not have Go again, so my opponent lets me draw. I'm kind of forced to use my snaps to try and get any sort of value from it. So my opponent declares no blocks, and then I go ahead and pop snaps. Of course, they could still, ice react or something, so then I'll just draw back into this snatch I'm holding, which honestly I'll be very fine with. But all they do is a sink. So even though my opponent's on the aggressive Oldhim plan, Sink is one of those cards that's just really good against Briar because of the, 4 attack on hits like Snatch. Or like a Force of Nature into like something, into like a 3 attack. Sink just, efficiently blocks those kind of effects out. We draw into a blue burgeoning, not what we want to see. We would have much rather seen either a 0-cost non-attack, like say it was a Nimblism. Well, if I do Nimblism, I get Embodiment of Lightning, and then I Snatch for 10. Or a Go Again attack. That would have been nice as well. This burgeoning is not as nice. So we have 2 options here. I could just come in for another Snatch for 7. But, that will not have Go Again, so I imagine it'll be, like, my opponent will just do something similar, where, they might block a bit and just let me have the draw effect. The other option is I make a Rune Chant and Swing Thorn, pitching this blue burgeoning. In that case, I get to Arsenal the Snatch. But the scary thing about that is I know my opponent's deck really attacks the Arsenal. Like, we just saw a yellow disable The aggressive Oldhim deck definitely runs CNC. So I know my opponent's going to attack my arsenal, so I'm just wondering whether I want to cash in on the +3 damage from Mount Heroic by playing this Snatch right now, instead of using the Thorn and then potentially getting my Snatch taken away from me when an opponent attacks my arsenal. In the end, I decide to do the Thorn play, because it's only 2 less damage compared to the Snatch. But I do, get to arsenal it. Get to have an arsenal, just in case my opponent isn't attacking my arsenal. Which turned out to, clearly it turned out to be the wrong play. Yeah, so probably, just given that my opponent kept that many cards in hand the previous turn, I should have expected they're attacking my arsenal. And so I should have just gone for the Snatch, regardless of the fact that I won't get a lot of value from the draw effect. Just to cash in the extra damage from the Channel Mount Heroic. So blunder by me there. I got too greedy with the idea of, having the draw effect on Snatch actually do something for me, when it was just really, really likely that my opponent is either, well, if they're not attacking my arsenal, they're spinal crushing me. So just in either case, I should have read that I can't get greedy with that Snatch there. So this CNC is coming in with my opponent has 1 floating and Tunic up, so this is certainly a pummel. So I decide to say no blocks, so I can keep the pressure up. Because if I block, say with 2 cards, I try and block out the CNC, I get pummeled, I lose another 2 cards, and I only have 1 card left. So I say no blocks and take 10, go ahead and lose my Snatch in my arsenal, and discard this Revel in Runeblood. Cool. Go ahead and pitch the blue to make a Rune Chant, and then Minnowism and play this Overload, which is now coming in for 9. So Overload, yeah, I wasn't sure about this card, but I was like, I need belittle targets, like cards to reveal to belittle. And Overload after a Channel Mount, like when you have Channel Mount Heroic on the field, actually feels pretty good. This is a 9 damage on hit go again. Also note, my opponent can't put shield in front of this to stop me from swinging Thorn because I have Tunic up. So if my opponent doesn't block this, I just, I go ahead and get my Thorn. My opponent blocks a Rune Chant with Arcane Barrier, and they still have their Crown damage prevention floating. So if my opponent has an Earth card here, they can actually stop the on-hit. They would, need to put Crater Fist in front of this, and Stalag, and this Macho Grande, and pitch an Earth card. So that would block a total of 9, including the Crown that's floating. But they don't have an Earth card. So I go ahead and Thorn after this, because the Overload trigger is giving it go again. And I miss my Embodiment of Earth trigger. Yeah, now there's a CNC coming at me. I mean, this almost feels like the best thing to do against this sort of Oldhim deck is just to never have an arsenal. So this CNC is basically just 6 damage, so, I just go ahead and take it. Go ahead and pitch to Earth Surge and then Nimblism, getting Embodiment of Lightning. And then on Gloom Whales coming in for 9. This, was already going to have go again since I created an aura this turn, which is the Lightning. And Lightning also popped, giving it go again. So this is 9. Again, we're representing a Thorn immediately after this, and we have Tunic up, so this Stalag won't stop us from swinging Thorn. Gloomveil, of course, another, really good belittle reveal target. Right, opponent blocks 5 total, takes 4, and I can go in and Thorn, and they take the entire 4 from the Thorn as well. So clearly their arsenal is something they want to keep, that's why they did it in Crown. Okay, and we get Channeling Frigid here, which is so extremely annoying. If it weren't for the Channeling Frigid, we would have a very similar play to what we did on turn 1, where we do a Sonata, and then we belittle, reveal, crackle, Then we Minnowism, and then Crackle gets go again from Volume of Lightning, and we still can end the turn with Thorn, which would have been amazing and exactly the sort of play that this deck wants to do, but Channel Lake Frigid is messing us up. So we go ahead and just take the damage here and the Frostbite. I could have full blocked it with just Force of Nature, but that's kind of like my only blue in hand, and I will need it to get through Channel Lake Frigid. We go ahead and pitch 2 into a Sonata to, I mean, X is still 0. We're paying 2 for it because of Channel plus the Frostbite. We're really hoping to hit a blue, but, you know, we still get a hit, which is, like, fine. So my opponent this low, the idea is just, we need to just try and swing Rosetta every turn, and we'll eventually get there. Okay, my opponent pitches to stop the Arcane. And I go ahead and pay 2 to play this Belittle, which lets me find enough Minnowism, which means I'm going to have enough resources to swing the Thorn after this. Okay, my opponent gives me a 3 block, and I pitch 2 into the Thorn. I cannot use Tunic, because Channel's on the field. So it'll cost me 1 to even use the Tunic, and it gives me back 1, so there's really no point in doing that. My opponent uses one of their floating to crown, uses the other floating to stop the other Arcane, and then now didn't you stop the 2 physical. And then they just Earth React to stop the physical. Okay, and then they hammer us, and we know that there's no way they can keep Channel at this point, so yeah, we just go ahead and take that. Honestly, opponent is kind of closing up the life lead. Yep, so now we finally use the Tunic that's just been there. We pitch to use the Tunic, it gets us back up to 3. Play the Charmant Heroic, and then we go ahead and play this Burgeoning for 7. Definitely not the best card to follow up with a Charmant Heroic, but since my opponent's at 2, you know, 7 is still threatening a decent amount. Okay. So my opponent opting to use equipment here tells me they're obviously really trying to keep their hand. You use 2 pieces of equipment and they sink from Arsenal. And they do, you know, do the sinks effect, so they take 1 from my Burgeoning. I get embodiment. Now when they're at 1, it's they basically need to Arsenal every turn, otherwise a Rosetta swing just kills them. Okay, and then they come in with a Break Ground. And the thing is, I have to be scared of a pummel. Like, given my opponent didn't give me any cards, I do need to play around that pummel. If I just say no blocks and my opponent pummels me, I just, you know, let just lose the game on the spot. Yep. So I go ahead and put 3 block in front of this 6 attack Break Ground. So even if it gets a red pummel, I will go down to 1 and still be alive. I'll need to discard a card from the pummel, but then at least, you know, I have a stronger turn. Okay, and my opponent does pummel me. It is a yellow, so I go down to 2 instead of 1. But yeah, I'm definitely glad I played around the pummel. Although with this hand, there's no way I swing Thorn. But I still can do a decent amount of damage. I pitch to make a Rune Chant. So then I go ahead and E-Strike, and there's a very interesting decision here of choosing this E-Strike to have go again, or choosing it to have +2. Either way, the total amount of damage I represent this turn is the same. Because even if I say go again, and after this I swing the Thorn's only coming in for 2 physical. So, you know, either way the damage is the same. But the Thorn is a separate instance of damage, which means it wouldn't be another full card my opponent needs to use to block it. But I end up choosing +2 on this to actually play around the Blizzard. Because if I choose go again on this and then my opponent has the Blizzard, then that could be really bad. So my opponent uses Tunic to block the Rune Chant, and now this E-Strike's coming in for 10. And we draw into Vexing Malice, which is solid in this sort of situation. Because if I can set up a turn where I have Vexing Malice plus Thorn, then even with my opponent having an arsenal, they cannot survive. So it took me a while to figure out what probably is the best line for this turn. I go ahead and start with a Nimblism, pitch to make a Rune Chant with the Force of Nature, and then go ahead and do this E-Strike picking go again. So now this E-Strike's coming in for 1 Rune Chant and 8 physical, and I still have 1 floating to swing Thorn, and this plays around the Ice React. Whereas the line I was thinking about earlier was Nimblism and Force of Nature, giving me Embodiment of Lightning into E-Strike, draw a card. So then, I can pitch that card I draw to swing Rosetta. But that opens me up to get Ice Reacted. So I switched over to this line. My opponent pitches to block the Rune Chant. And Crown as well. And then they block the physical, and then now I can come in with Thorn for 2 and 2. They use 1 floating and the Crown floating to block the Arcane and give me the last card. So now all I need to do is just swing Thorn again this turn, because my opponent definitely can't Arsenal. And we should have the game. And we will have Tunic up as well, so as long as we can do that, we should be good. Okay, and we draw into an E-Strike, which is perfect for being able to swing Thorn. Cool, so we Bramble Spark, fusing with Sotomorrow. And what I really like about Bramble Spark, it's basically 0 for 4. It feels like Briar's version of Revel and Runeblood. Because Briar really cares about like a physical attacks hitting, like Snatch and stuff. Or, a Force of Nature, like any attack after Force of Nature. They really care about the physical damage hitting, and so I'd much rather have Bramble Spark in my deck than Revel and Runeblood. Cool, and then I go ahead and E-Strike. This is now 1 Arcane, 8 Physical, and I choose Go again. And keeping this Force of Nature in hand, so I play around the Blizzard, which is actually completely not necessary, because if my opponent had Blizzard here, they Blizzard this, but then there's no way they can stop all the damage from the E-Strike itself, regardless of the Thorn. And I just use the Tunic to go ahead and Thorn, and that's game over. So yeah, this Belittle Briar deck definitely needs a little more tuning. This is definitely like one of the first few iterations of this deck. As of now, I have, removed the Rebels from the main board and swapped them. So yeah, it does have legs, not entirely sure how strong or consistent it is. But yeah, so that was the game. Thank you for watching, and hope you enjoyed it.